go. There we go. Hello, my darlings, and welcome to Lunch and Learn Live for today, the 6th of July. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope wherever in the world you are having a very lovely day. So let's get the ball rolling by saying hello in the comments section, letting me know where in the world you are and what's for lunch. I am fresh out of the Essential Skills for Coaching Women workshop, which I just ran for 3 hours this morning, which was amazing. An amazing cohort of very inspiring coaches and would-be coaches on the call, which was a lot of fun. And that's why we thought we would talk some coaching skills and why coaching skills are so important to our everyday life, give you a couple of things to think about today, and hopefully get you spreading your wings about thinking about yourself as a coach in your life. So where in the world are you? Let me know in the comments section. Say hello. If you give Ecamm permission to see who you are, that's really great too. You can see it in just the little messages about the live there. At the bottom it says, give Ecamm permission, blah, blah, blah. There's Nushin saying, wow, Joe, you have incredible energy. Well, thank you, my darling. I do my best. It's not my energy, actually. I'm just a vessel. I let it go through. It makes it easier that way. I just had a really yummy lunch. My husband had it all ready for me, which was great because I knew I had a quick turnaround today after the workshop, which was nice. I had butternut squash, carrot, zucchini, and steak, which was lovely. Nushin says, I just came off the 3-hour workshop and haven't finished making my lunch yet. It'll come, darling. It'll come. You'll get there. You can make lunch. I can't make lunch and talk at the same time, so I've had to do this. Say hello to me, ladies, as you're arriving. Let me know where in the world you are and what's for lunch. Ruth is tuning in as she gets ready for bed. That's great. If you were on the workshop, I'd love to hear what you took away from the workshop that helped you. But today I want to talk a little about coaching as a kind of, I guess, as an approach. Because some of you may be coaches, and if you are a coach, say in the comment section, coach here, let me know that you are a coach. But what I want to talk about is more like a coaching approach to life, which I think is something that I've kind of done most of my life. I think I've always been someone who's able to see potential in people. I'm gifted at seeing people as they are, not as their trauma would have them be, if that makes sense. Like seeing the truth of people and how if they would just be in their freedom, how they can be in the world. And I've been like that, and that's how I be a big sister. It's how I be a daughter. It's how I be a friend. It's how I be a business owner. It's kind of my whole way of being, if you like. So I want to kind of invite you in this workshop today to take that as an approach for a number of reasons that I will talk about. Patricia says, oh, hard to find you. I am a coach. Patricia is a coach. Yay, I saw you on the workshop this morning, Patricia. Good to see you. Helen would have loved to have been on the workshop this morning. Helen, you can get registered for the replay, or if you're not already registered, if someone on the team is there, could you put a link so that people can go register for the replay of the Essential Skills for Coaching Women workshop this morning if they missed it? I'd really appreciate that. I'm not sure if, I'm sure we've got a team member here with us. Let me just put that in. Can someone put the link for ESCW in the Facebook Live, please? There we go. Someone will do that for us. Awesome. So we'll get you sorted, Helen. We'll send you a link so that you can get registered and you'll get the recording. The recording is just got to be sorted out, but it will get that up hopefully overnight tonight, and it'll be ready to go out tomorrow, which will be great. And you can watch that. So let's talk about coaching as an approach. Let's talk about as an approach to life. Here's the thing. I've been doing quite a bit of reading lately and quite a bit of my own inner work and research and so on. And I've been watching a little bit of work from Gabor Mate, and I'm not sure if I'm saying his name correctly, but he's a Hungarian-Canadian psychologist who specializes in addictions. And he does got some pretty amazing talks where he's, standing in front of a room and said, how many of you have got addictions? And maybe 10% of the audience put their room up. And then he talks about how he believes addictions are anytime we're doing a behavior that we can't really stop to numb pain. And he says, so there's smoking and there's drugs and there's alcohol, the obvious ones, and maybe sex and so on. But then he's like, and Netflix and Facebook and Twitter and, working, overwork. And then after he's kind of done all of this, then he says, so how many of you have got addictions? And 90% of the audience put their hands up, which I find fascinating. And his perspective is that most of our mental illness and physical illness, or in fact, all of our mental illness and indeed most of our physical illness as well, except for a slim portion, which is because of genetics, are due to kind of childhood trauma. And he says most of us don't think we had a traumatic traumatic upbringing, but trauma isn't what happened to you, it's how you feel about what happened to you. It's what you did with what happened to you. It's what happened inside in relation to what happened to you. And so we end up in this perspective where most of us, when we look at it, have had some kind of trauma in our childhood, simply because oftentimes, because of the culture that we live in, where we, we get separated from our parents and we cry ourselves to sleep and we get fed on bottles and we do everything which is counter to our human instincts with little tiny babies, right? Like, it's not that our parents are necessarily bad. They just buy into when we don't get the opportunity to form strong attachments to our parents, most of us, right? And this is the thing. Anyway, what has this got to do with what I'm talking about today, this coaching approach to life? I go through life with the fundamental assumption that everyone is doing the very best they can with the resources they have available to them. And most of us, indeed I kind of assume all of us, have had a traumatic life, which means that they have less access. I kind of assume that most people I meet don't cherish and love themselves because they didn't have parents who knew how to cherish and love them particularly well, right? Or even if they did, they might have done, just simple little things. Like, I'm not saying that everybody had a traumatic childhood. It's not that. But if you approach everyone you meet from the perspective of, this person's doing the best they can with the resources they have, and why they don't have the resources is in part because of whatever's going on in this moment, but it's also in part because of what's been going on for them their whole life, their history. What it does is it activates in you compassion. It activates in you, excuse me. Sorry. It activates in you compassion. It activates in you a desire to seek to understand the person who is working for you, the person who is your child, the person who is in your scout group or whatever, right? Whatever it is, wherever you are in life, you're the person who is your best friend. It activates in you a sense of compassion and curiosity for whatever is going on for them is not, because this is the thing, right? If we don't approach life like this, if we approach life like everyone has more resources than me and should be sorted, and despite the fact that there's a fucking pandemic and that they haven't got a job and that they, whatever is going on, that they should be able to not lose their cool, right? Which is how actually unconsciously most of us approach life. What the fuck's wrong with that barista? Couldn't give me a fucking smile, right? What the fuck's wrong with that train driver? Couldn't give me a fucking smile. What the fuck's wrong with you? Why are you speaking to me like that? What the fuck's wrong with you? Stop crying. What the fuck's wrong? Most of us go through life assuming that people should have it more sorted, thinking, what the fuck is wrong with you? Sort yourself out. Can you relate to that? Who can kind of relate to that? This kind of expectation that unconsciously most of us want everyone to understand us and why we're not being our best selves today. I'm so sorry I'm not being my best self today. I had a big fight with my spouse last night, or I'm so sorry I'm not being my best self today. I found out that my best friend has been diagnosed with an awful illness yesterday. or I'm so sorry I'm not being my best self. Like, we have lots and lots of reasons, and we want everyone to understand why we're not being our best selves. Most of us can only see why we're not being our best selves in the moment, not seeing that our past and our history informs that. I'm so sorry, that we're blah, blah, blah. And we want people to understand that. Yet we go through life going, husband, wife, child, mother, father, friend, sister, sibling, work colleague, employee, boss. What the fuck's wrong with you? Why can't you hold yourself, right? We do this. We go through life wanting to be understood and forgiven for not being perfect. But we're not so good at not being so critical and judgmental of others. So I believe that if we can activate in ourselves the approach of a coach, the approach of a coach in our lives in general, we will have a far better experience of life. A far better experience of life, because in everyone that we see, we know we are speaking to a human being, not an enlightened soul. I have met a few extraordinary people in my life, but I can count them on one hand. People, when you meet them, you're like, oh, wow, you got your shit sorted, baby. Well done, right? But I can count them on one hand. Most people I meet, because of my superpower, which is my ability to see the truth of people beyond their pain, right? That's one of the things that I can see. I can just see truth. Is because of that, I've met very few like that. Most people I meet, you meet the person and you meet their pain underneath. And because I meet people like a coach, I'm always curious to learn about them. Not that I'm trying to coach. I don't coach everyone I meet. Like, don't do that. You just drive everyone nuts. If you're like someone, your barista you say, how are you to your barista, and say, oh, I'm having a pretty rough day. And you say, tell me more about that. What does it remind you of in your childhood? Right? That is not what I'm talking about. Don't do that. But it's more the mindset of coach. The mindset of coach that says, oh, barista, I see you're having a tough day, huh? And you give them space to maybe talk about it a little bit. And you see that that's not who they are. They're not their tough day. They're not even the part that they don't see, which isn't that it's just a tough day, that it's, other stuff feeding into it. And that you don't see, they're all of that. They're all of their pain. But beyond that, all of us is this radiant soul of extraordinariness, right? Beyond that, your barista is a radiant soul of extraordinariness. And in our listening and in our way of interrelating with people, we can bring that out. Shall I get personal? Do you want me to get... Nicholas says I've got my shit sorted. Really? I'm not sure about that. I feel like my shit is entirely unsorted at the moment, but it's okay. In like 3 months from now, I'll be in another phase of sortedness for a little time, but I don't feel sorted right now. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Ruth says, it's like my office. Everyone thinks their job is busier, more stressful, and more important than everybody else's. That's exactly it, right? Let me make those a little bigger so you guys can see it. Yeah, that's it. But that's not it. That's how most of us go through life. So, I was going to get personal about something. Now I can't remember what I was going to get personal about. Oh, yeah, a conversation with my friends. So I was having... Your barista is a radiant soul. Yes, all my baristas are radiant souls, not just baristas. Everyone in my life is a radiant soul masquerading as someone in pain. That's how I approach life. Everyone's doing the best they can with the resources they have. And if I want to be a great person, I can help someone get in touch with resources in a little conversation, or in a coaching construct, or, in a management construct, but it's a really powerful approach to have. Anyway, the personal thing I wanted to share was my conversation with my friend. So we were talking about me the other day, which is not one of my favorite topics of conversation. With this kind of approach to life, I'm much more comfortable talking about other people. But they were talking about me. And my friend Sarah described me as crack cocaine. I said, what on earth are you talking about, woman? Sorry, I've gone blurry. Hello, hello, webcam. Here I am. Hello, webcam. Tune in. Because I got, there we go. There we are. What do you mean I'm like crack cocaine? And she said, that presence that you bring to people, where you're listening to them not as their pain, but as who they are underneath it, is kind of addictive because not everybody in the world is like that. And I'm like, really? I mean, I kind of know it because I see them, but because I'm so busy being like it unconsciously, I don't notice that it's not everywhere around me. Everywhere I go, there I am, right? And the same thing for you. Everywhere you go, there you are. And please don't hear this as I'm touting my own trumpet. This is kind of just what my friend reflected back to me, right? And she said that's addictive because most people don't have that in their lives. Most people don't have someone in their lives that can listen through or see through their pain or what's going on for them through to the truth of who they are or what's underneath that. And it's that deep devoted listening, that deep presence that you bring when you're training or when you're coaching somebody or even when you're having a conversation with someone on a break at an event is, it's usually got that quality. Unless I'm completely depleted and I'm pulling myself away. And that's usually what I'll do. I'll take myself away because it's very difficult for me to be other than that full presence with people. So it got me to thinking. It got me to thinking about how I approach people, and it got me to thinking about how I approach life. And it made me realize that this piece that I want to land with you today, that I approach life as a coach. I approach life with the assumption that the person that I'm speaking to is much greater than their pain or much greater than their current bad mood or much greater than their lack of their limited resources currently. And they can be much more profound given the right conditions. And if there's a gift that I can bring to that person, it's the right conditions of listening. Yeah. So this would make a very big difference. I want you to think about right now a relationship that you've got in your life that is not great, right? It might not be bad, but it's just not as great as it can be. Maybe it's a relation. Maybe you're happy to share with me in the comment section. If you are, that would be great. But maybe it's a relationship with one of your kids, or maybe it's a relationship with a boss or a coworker or a friend or a relation of some sort. Think about something, a relationship where it's not great. I want you to think about the judgments that you have about that person, right? Because if the relationship is not great, you have judgments about that person. Who do you think they are? How are they being to you? You will have judgments about them that they don't listen well enough, that they are selfish, that they've got no boundaries, that they don't look after themselves, or whatever it is that is the description. You've got judgments or assumptions about how that person is, all of them fundamentally packaged up. That's who they are, someone who is all of those judgments, right? And when you think about the person and you're thinking about them as those judgments, what you're missing is that all of those things that you're telling yourself about them, they are so much more than that. They are, I believe, a radiant soul in a coat of pain, right? A radiant soul in a coat of pain, a radiant soul with blinkers on that can't see it. Why do I know that? Because that's what I am. And that's what you are. And that's what every human being I've ever met is this awesome soul with more or less layers of shit between their awesomeness and the outside world. And if you want to change the way you relate to someone, take a coaching approach, right? Take a coaching approach. Nicola, I can see that you're sharing with your friends. Thank you so much. That's lovely. And by the way, ladies, if this is resonating with you and you know that you've got someone that would benefit from hearing what I'm talking about right now, please do the same thing. Just tag them in the comments section and invite them along to the Facebook Live, or share this on your own personal page when we're done here today, or share, I don't even know if you can share it straight away. I'd be really grateful for that, because we've got a mission to equip 1 million women with these tools. So, every bit of sharing that you can do really makes a difference. And I'm very grateful. Thank you, honey. Really want to celebrate you, Nicola. Thank you. But yeah, come from that perspective. With the coaching approach, knowing that that is what's going on for that person, you can transform the relationship. You can transform the relationship not by coaching and fixing them, but by the approach and the way that you show up to listen to them. So, without even being a trained coach, by taking on this assumption of what most coaching schools call unconditional positive regard, which for me is just a hoity-toity intellectual way of saying unconditional love, which is how we teach our coaches here at One of Many, just coming from mother power type. And with whomever you're with, just being deeply present in unconditional love and acceptance. If you change the way you listen to somebody without trying to fix them, don't try and fix them, you can actually transform the way they respond to you and your perception of them. So this is what I kind of wanted to share with you today. I wanted to share with you a little tool. It's called Devoted Listening. And I shared it on the workshop today. And if you want it in more detail, go register for the workshop there. You can see Sarah's put the link there for you. oneofmany.co.uk/essential skills for coaching. Lots of hyphens. So click on the link is probably easiest than me saying all of the hyphens. But if you go register for the workshop, I dive into this in more detail. But come from that point of view that this is a radiant soul. This is a radiant soul who's just got some pain of either this moment or the past or whatever going on for them so that they can't see that just now. And I can't see it too well right now. But if I get curious and I listen through from unconditional love, maybe things can transform. And the way of listening is the practice of devoted listening. And I'm going to give you the kind of brush strokes of it right now. And we shared more in the workshop. So step one of devoted listening is what we call, and this is the kind of listening skill that we teach our coaches and that I invite you to take into every work relationship, every spousal relationship, kid relationship, sibling relationship, parent relationship you've got. It will transform them. It's called devoted listening. So step one is to revere. And I chose the word revere very specifically because I want to bring some reverence to the quality of relationship that you have. This is not just an everyday conversation. You can practice this with your barista. You can practice this with, with the kid who comes to your community group. You can practice this with the neighbor, when you're dropping off, a meal for them or whatever it might be, right? You can practice it anywhere. But by having step one be revere, what I'm saying to you is bring a quality to your listening which is beyond just being in the same room and hearing noises. That's not listening. There's a deeper level. Yeah. So when we revere, we are being fully present in loving kindness with an open heart. In other words, we're in mother power type, like really deeply listening from mother energy, a place of unconditional love. We have an open body and an open heart and really deeply listening. So that's the revering step. Step two is to receive, really deeply receive. And this is where we bring some of our lover power type to it. And not the sexual aspect of lover, but the sensual aspect of lover. Lover has access, deep access to all five of our senses. So you bring listening into all of your five senses. You listen with your ears, not just to the words that are being said, but also to the words that are not being chosen. You listen to the tone of voice. You listen to the non-verbal noises and stuff that people make. So when they go, that means something, right? So you're listening deeply to and what is being said, but you're also listening with your eyes. You're listening with your eyes to the color shifts. You're listening with your eyes to their breathing. You're listening with your eyes to how you're receiving every little bit of input about, to how they're holding themselves. Are they, holding themselves? They're holding themselves like, how is that person holding themselves? You're receiving all of that stuff. Yeah. Then You're also receiving, and I'm laughing because it's happening as I'm talking about it. You're also receiving your own internal hunches. So this is where you're listening to your sorceress energy. For those of you who are familiar with that work, it's the part that is connected to your faith, your God, your higher self, your intuition, Allah, whatever you call it, right? You get little voices in your head or feelings or instincts, or you're listening to that. So you're receiving from that person, but you're also receiving and opening up to your intuition. That's the receiving phase. Then the third phase is to respond. And it's kind of like an affirmation more than anything, right? It's not you're just kind of making gentle noises of affirmation to say that you're listening. It sounds a little bit like, oh, oh, gee, but you're not interrupting. Yeah, you don't interrupt. You're just kind of giving these gentle words of sounds of affirmation that say, I'm here with you. Oh, gosh, but you're not interrupting. You're letting the person speak it out, whatever is the thing. And then the fourth phase is you review. You review and you share it back with them. You say to them, wow, what I heard you say just now was blah. And then you tell them what you heard in your words and a bit of their words. Is that it? And then you ask them to kind of, affirm that you've heard it correctly. You might ask any clarifying questions about what's going on. But with these four simple phases of revere, receive, respond, and review, the practice of devoted listening, you've got an approach now, an approach to life, and a process, devoted listening, to be able to bring something profoundly different to any relationship that you're in. And this is where I think a coaching approach works. If you go through life assuming that this is a radiant soul who's got some shit going on right now, or had some shit going on in the past that's still in their system, and you hear them, you really give them space just to share and to be with you. It doesn't matter whether that radiant soul is your offspring or the person who gave birth to you, or a sibling or a friend or a work colleague or your barista, as the barista is the hero of today's Lunch and Learn Live. Maybe I need a coffee. Maybe that's what it is. You will change lives because that quality of listening doesn't happen in the world usually. You show up like that. You will change the world. You will change the world for that person. Now, not everybody is going to respond and open up to you, right? That's not going to happen. But what you've done is you've thrown open the gates and you've said, I'm here for you. And there's a space here where you can be loved, right? Whether that's in a performance review or if you're firing someone, you can still practice devoted listening and give that person the gift of, really being tremendously heard. And you are opening the gates and saying, this is what's possible. There's space here for you. I'm curious about you beyond what it is you present. And that person will go away from that interaction and it will make a difference. And they might make a little 1% trajectory change because of that in their lives. A tiny little trajectory change that will make a real difference for them in the whole future of their life down the road. Makes a massive difference, a massive, massive difference. But here's the best bit. It also changes your life. Think about that person that you've got judgments about. Trust me when I say if you show up in the practice of devoted listening to that relationship and you listen beyond your judgments, you listen from a place of unconditional love, you will drastically change the feelings that you have about that person. If you listen from curiosity, if you listen from unconditional acceptance, you will change things. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's a great message there. Nicholas says, I loved learning that if you are active listening, but your mind is generating your next sentence, then you cannot be actively listening. Yes. Yeah, that's a really good point. And your mind is certainly not quiet. Yes. But you've also got to be open to your hunches. Not if you're sitting there generating your next sentence or the next interesting thing you're going to say, you're not being present. But sometimes when someone is speaking, like you'll get an overwhelming feeling, about them, or an overwhelming, or you'll hear words, or you'll just get a hunch, which is being present, but also present to whatever source or intuition is putting in there. Yeah, I think that's a kind of piece around that. So how's this landing with you, ladies? I want to hear from you. What's landing with you about what we're talking about here today, about a coaching approach to the world, a coaching approach to your team, a coaching approach to your family, a coaching approach to your friends. Remember, please hear this. I'm not saying go out in the world and try and fix people. That's not it. Unless they hire you as a coach and say, can you please help me? Then you can co-create with them and help them to fix themselves, definitely. But it's not about going and trying to fix people. This is more about by providing a space for them to live into. If you are assuming that they're awesome, they're just having a tough day or a tough life, that is a different space than most of the spaces that they have to live into, where most people around them are judging them and reflecting back to them that you are a fuckwit, right? That's what most people who are having a tough time get reflected back to them. But if you can reflect back to them, wow, you're an awesome, you're not saying this even, it's just how you're listening and how you're being with them, it can make a big difference. Patricia says, can you explain the word revere a bit more? I thought it had to do with dreaming. I'm not a native speaker. Yeah, it kind of does. The root, what's the etymology of the word revere? I want to look that up now. But yes, Patricia, the etymology of it, because it does like reverie. Reverie is kind of like a waking dream, if you like. That's a reverie. But it's also the root of the word reverence, which is also about treating something with a kind of sacredness. So if we revere something or someone, we treat them with sacredness, like holy relics are revered. Leaders of, religious things are revered. Great leaders are revered oftentimes. So that's what reverence is. So when we revere something, we treat it with a kind of sacredness. Interesting, though, that it is related to reverie, which is dreaming. So now I'm really interested to go do some etymology after we're finished here. Every cell of my body wants to look it up right now, but I feel that wouldn't be respectful of your time. I'm such an etymology nerd. So tell me, how's this landing for you, ladies? How's this landing for you about the coaching approach? Hannah says, devoted listening to some people exhausts me. For example, if they only complain or hold opinions about other people which are not nice. Yeah, so Hannah, you also have boundaries, right? You also have boundaries. So I'm not saying that in order for you to be a good person, you must go through life devoted listening to everybody all of the time. Holy shit, Batman, that would exhaust you, right? It's only when you have, number one, first replenished your own energy. Number two, that you want to be able to kind of be in this state. Trust me, as someone who does it unconsciously all of the time, it is exhausting if you do it all of the time without consciousness. But if people only complain or hold opinions about other people which are not nice, and they are not going to be shifting, they're not going to be moving, that's all that they've got, that is a person who is a radiant soul who has a lot of cloaks of shit and pain over the top. It is not your job as a coach to make every person you meet take off the coats of shame and pain. It's not your job. There's a great quote from Buddha, and I'm paraphrasing. Who says, our job is not to enlighten or awaken everyone. Everyone has this radiant light inside, and I see my job is not to awaken everybody, but just to awaken or enlighten or something, those of little dust. So we're like a light shining, and around it is dust. Yeah. And he says it's those of little dust that is the job. Yeah. So when you show up to somebody and they're one of those of little dust and you hear them, something will shift for them. If you show up to someone with a shit ton of dust, a lot of coats, a lot of exhaustion, a lot of exhausting opinions, a lot of all of that kind of stuff, it may or may not change, right? It may or may not change. And it's an act of kindness if you're able to hear them out, even if that's all they have. Because if they complain or have opinions about other people, eventually, if you keep showing up to that, and I'm not suggesting that you should, it's your choice, it's your boundaries, it's how you want to spend your time. But if there is someone, say, in your family, right, who complains a lot, you could show up and practice devoted listening every time you're spending time with them and let them say all of the things without taking it on, without letting it in, just because you are now disproving their rule by being able to be there, be present for them, and so on, right? It's a different way of approaching things. It's a loving way of approaching things. I'm not saying it's the only way and you don't have to choose it with everyone, and it is exhausting. So it's something to play with, right? It's something to play with. This is not a hard and fast rule. Life is a paradox. Victoria says, it's changed the way I can be with my sister after having a difficult relationship which was based on guilt. And now I see all the pain, but I no longer have to take it on. And she reacts in a different way to me too. That's it. When you sit in unconditional love, you can sit in the presence of another's pain, but you don't have to take responsibility for it. You don't have to take it on, and you can sit in the center of love and make a difference. And that is what I think a great coaching approach is to life. That is, I think, the place to come from. Now look, if you're firing somebody or doing a performance review, you're also going to have a healthy dose of queen in there because you're going to have to do some talking. But if you come with that person, if you come to that person from a place that that they are, that they are an awesome soul and this role isn't right for where they are right now, it's completely different from they're an idiot who can't do their job and I have to get rid of them. Completely different, right? Completely different. Erica says it helps talking even with your husband. Absolutely. It will transform that. Absolutely. Well, Rachel's looked it up for me. Revere, to very much respect and admire. The root French and Latin, re plus or fear, respect. There you go. Thank you, honey. Excellent. So, ladies, my invitation for you is to experiment with a coaching approach to your entire life just for a week until we come back together next Tuesday for Lunch and Learn Live. Come from that place of unconditional love and acceptance. Go out in the world to see people as radiant souls who happen to have a few coats of, stuff on them. Those of a bit of dust, right? Some of them have got a little bit of dust, some of them have got a lot of dust. But see them as that and practice devoted listening with them and see how it transforms your relationship and how it transforms you, because when that relationship transforms, your experience of life will transform, especially for those kind of near and dear kind of relationships. If you're interested in learning more about our coaching approach and how we use the women's power types and all of our coaching tools, I just this morning finished a workshop called The Essential Skills for Coaching Women, where we teach some very practical tools as well as some new distinctions and philosophies about this approach. And you can get the replay if you would like to. It was an in-depth 3-hour workshop. And the replay is at oneofmany.co.uk/essential skills for coaching with a hyphen in between each of those words. You'll see in the comment section on this video the link, and you can go get registered and you can access the replay right there and watch it in your own time if you weren't able to make the call. Ladies, it's been wonderful spending some time with you today. Once again, like a good wine, a good Lunch and Learn Live is always best shared. So if you have anyone in your life who could benefit with hearing the message today, please do share this video with them. I would be immensely grateful. It helps us to spread the message and it will make a difference in the life of whomever you tag or share to the page. Okay, darlings, see you later. Bye.